Hello, I'm John Bachman, and once again we're delighted to welcome you to MOSAIC.
And I'm Wyvetta Bullock, inviting you to consider the environment and its urgent message for our future, especially the future of our children, in what are sometimes hopeful but often frightening times.
According to experts, if the nations of the world keep pace with current plans for development after the year 2000, supplies of clean air, water, and fertile soil will be drastically depleted. The threat to our children's future is real, and alarms are ringing across the planet. In September 1990, a United Nations World Summit was convened to protect and improve the lives of children. The members of that summit promised to, quote, work for common measures for the protection of the environment so that all children can enjoy a safer and healthier future. Now, let's meet some children involved with an ELCA ministry near Madison, Wisconsin. Bethel Horizons Camp and Retreat Center is dedicated to year-round environmental education. By creating an awareness of creation stewardship, Bethel Horizons hopes to incorporate a theology of creation not only for the church, but for the planet as a whole.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world.
Children romp and play in the hills of southern Wisconsin, land of lakes and dairy farms. Environmental problems due to traffic or industry seem miles, even worlds away. For these children are on a fun-filled visit to a camp and retreat center called Bethel Horizons. Yet it's a visit that may change the way they look at the world around them and the part they play in taking care of it.
Children in the future are at risk, I believe, in many areas of our society. Certainly they're at risk environmentally as the quality of the air is getting poorer and the streams are becoming polluted. We're aware of that. The ground itself is being eroded in many parts of our country and in our world. Kids are at risk also in that there aren't parents to care for many youngsters. There aren't adults to care. And I think we're one of a network of groups that are outreaching to help people, to help kids at risk. I don't see us as the only answer in southwestern Wisconsin, but I see us as one of many pieces of a link, of a chain, which would help to give kids an opportunity to grow and to really ensure their future with a safe environment and with safe people.
We have just a modest goal, is to just have the kids leave here with an increased appreciation and awareness of their natural surroundings. Our goal is to let them, when they get to be in a position to make some decisions, they can make decisions right now in their lives, whether it be, the recycling and all that kind of stuff. But later on, when they might get into something a little more active and so forth, to make decisions that are favorable towards the environment, that they can remember, that's a neat place. And I think that being in nature, I felt good being there. And I like that. And I like to preserve that for the future. And these are some things that I can do to preserve that.
Bethel Horizons offers many ways for visitors to appreciate nature and their responsibility for it. There are 473 acres with swimming holes, hiking trails, and hundreds of varieties of plants and animals. There are nature-related craft activities like baking apple pies and making wax candles out of sand molds. And there is a new nature center where children hear from a former naturalist in state government. Dr. Ruth Hine inspired the camp to focus on environmental issues and now creates exhibits for the Nature Center.
We have hands-on exhibits so that, again, children and adults can handle skulls of animals. They might see an animal out in the wild on a hike, but you can't get an idea of what its teeth are like or why it's a predator, how the predator functions in the community. Pelts, they might see a raccoon skedaddling down the path, but here they can feel the fur and compare it to a mink that's soft and sleek for its life in the water, that sort of thing. If we can increase understanding of how nature ticks, then there's a chance for a person to start caring. And I firmly believe love is at the bottom of not only human relationships, but human-earth relationships. When we start caring about the outdoors, we'll care more for it. And I think that's our major purpose. That's peaceful relationship between human beings in the land. And I think that starts with awareness.
The camp and center were founded by an ELCA congregation in Madison, Wisconsin. The camp's director is a pastor of that congregation, and he hopes the camp serves the whole church.
The church has been that in the past, we've really emphasized our relationship to God through Jesus. We've done a good job of emphasizing our relationship to one another and certainly trying to understand oneself. But it's been, for years, the church has been struggling with how to incorporate, I think, a good theology of creation. And we have felt it's really been important that we at Bethel Horizons really hold up for the church the importance of the environment, of the creation.
Could I hear that? Most of the time in my job, we are working with public school kids, and so we deal strictly with environmental education issues. We don't bring in theology into it. We don't hide it. I mean, there are things in the Nature Center that clearly state where we're coming from. And if kids ever ask questions, we talk about the issues. The neat thing is that when groups come out for different reasons, whether it be a confirmation class or a retreat group that are here from different reasons, we can tie the two together, and we can talk about our role as stewards of the earth and how important it is for Christians to take responsibility for great stewardship of our earth.
It's the kind of discussion that continues back in congregations, too.
Bethel Horizons, too. When you're out there, just imagine that Bethel Horizons could get sad or could be in danger. What do you think could be in danger out there?
The animals.
The animals? Mm-hmm. What else? Just keep thinking of what
I
could
think
make
our
Bethel
future
Horizons
is
sad.
very important right now, because if we don't save it like right now, we're not gonna have anything left when it's our time, when we're adults growing up. And we have to save it, do something to save it now before it's too late.
If we don't stop building on our forests and streams and everything, we're not going to have anything left, and nobody's going to be able to enjoy it or know what nature is about.
People just can't learn to take care of what God gave us, which is like real special, and we're not taking care of it and taking on the responsibility that He gave us.
I don't know if he was really thinking about what could happen as we got smarter and smarter, but what happened was we just endangered ourselves and the generations ahead of us.
Stewardship of creation is a hot topic these days. Where does our responsibility for protection of the environment begin, and to what extent should we carry that obligation?
Environmental questions are not easy ones, especially when jobs are on the line. What happens when we're confronted with two legitimate concerns that appear to be in opposition to each other? Some argue that the environment should be preserved for our future generations. Others say that stewardship of creation goes deeper than that. Our next feature takes us to the Pacific Northwest, where the conflict between the care of creation and the welfare of families has resulted in a bitter dispute with harsh consequences for both. Now, on the surface, the dispute seems to be between the logging industry and the environmentalists who want to protect an endangered species called the spotted owl. But the issue is more complicated than that. What's at risk are a precious few remaining acres of old-growth forest and an equally precious way of life and livelihood. In this setting, the church is leading the way to help mediate the dispute and to alleviate the suffering caused by this transition.
The issue of timber and the environment is a very complex one that does confront the church with a very difficult social issue, in which the church does have somewhat conflicting values, because we do have this long-standing commitment, or at least for the last 15 years, of trying to protect the environment and recognizing that human beings have exploited the environment and that we have to get back into some kind of right relationship with our environment. On the other hand, we have the commitment that has always been a part of the Christian tradition to the needs of people. And we're mostly concerned about the real people in these communities who have lived there and have had a way of life there. In this particular situation, we have a whole sort of subculture within our state, the timber industry, which is being severely impacted by these decisions that are restricting the timber harvest.
We've been in this log and timber business for 58 years. It's our, what we live. In Grace Harbor, you live the timber business. That's all we've known since childhood. See, with sawmills, the smell of Douglas fir, fresh-cut Douglas fir lumber, and the old-growth Douglas fir trees. And most of the old-growth trees are gone now.
We have cut over 90% of the big, wondrous, old-growth forests, ancient forests in the Pacific Northwest, and we're down to less than 10%. And what we and our colleagues are asking is that that 10% be protected in a natural state.
Well, it's the misguided judgment and misguided philosophy that's coming out from the environmentalists. They think trees are like minerals and oil, but trees are a crop. The resource is the land. The growing power of the soil is the resource.
The fact is we've cut at a horrendous rate in the last 10 and 15 years. And the communities that still think that there are thousands and thousands of acres of old-growth trees up there and that they can continue to cut the way their dad did and their granddad did are the ones that are in most trouble.
So you're taking away a whole segment of an industry and you're decimating those towns, those communities, and those counties that have built an industry on this resource. And you're saying, hey, you can no longer log that stuff because there's a little owl living out there. And what they're doing is they're putting much more importance on that owl than they are to the communities that develop and the people that are there.
This issue has never been one of just spotted owls versus jobs. The timber industry in the Northwest is unquestionably an industry in transition. We went to a mill that was run largely by a handful of men looking at computer screens and flipping switches. When I asked the mill operator how many people were employed in this mill compared to the one it replaced when it was built, and he said this mill employs half as many people. So there are a lot of changes going on in the milling industry and the timber industry that have nothing to do with spotted owls, nothing to do with old growth, and nothing to do with environmental concerns.
Our major concern, though, is to try to address the human problems that are being created by this transition. So I think the church should celebrate the fact that the office of the governor of the state of Washington called me and said, the church is the only people we could think about who could be helpful. And so the project is trying to help the local congregations in these communities become a resource to equip them to have some of the skills that are needed to address needs.
So what happens to these people when they're put out of jobs? When father comes home and says, I don't have work, I can't support my family, I can't make my house payment and the car payment's going over the hill. What's he going to do?
I personally dealt with 7 suicides. With 1 failure. This is not an enjoyable job. It's to watch the destructions of the families, especially the kids. Under the latest survey, 70% of the kids are at risk. Last year, 68% of all kids in Grace Harbor County were in some sort of federal feeding assistance program. They've had no heat in the house. Last winter was terrible. You pull up and here's some kids wrapped in a blanket waiting for you. It's appalling.
What I guess I'm seeing a lot of now for the first time in many years is you're having your 56, 57-year-old men who have had jobs all their life coming to the counter and applying, and you know, they've got tears in their eyes because they said, I've never been in a position like this before in my life.
We started out by selling my rifle and her horse to get married. Spent 25 years to put it all together with both of us working, to turn around and throw it away because somebody decided that a piece of paper on owls was pretty important. It's a little hard to swallow.
We have lost everything. We've had to walk through bankruptcy, and I've seen my husband go through so much pain and agony.
When I hadn't worked for 4 months and had no income except selling my tools, she finally put her foot down and made me get food stamps.
The first time you come to the food bank, you feel like you're, I don't know, low. It's just terrible feeling.
We have 3 children. You approach it in a real hesitant manner at first. It's a real degrading thing to have to go through. Going to the welfare, asking them for medical coupons.
The other thing is, I've never quit tithing, and I've stood up there, right there in that church, and I tithed, and I didn't know where I was going to get the money for our groceries.
The feelings are when someone's talking about, you know, oh, we went down and rented movies this weekend, and they say, did you watch this movie? And we say, no, we don't rent movies. You know, you decide, you know, what's important and what's not. Eating's important and watching TV isn't.
At one time, there was more lumber went out of this harbor than any other place in the United States. The people that are being hurt are your small town loggers. It's the blue collar worker, it's the man on the street that's getting hit the hardest by this. It is not the big, bad company that are taking the brunt of this.
Whether it's farming or auto manufacturing, the industry tends to consolidate in the hands of a few. And right now we're seeing what Weyerhaeuser called the Great Shakeout. And what's being lost in the shakeout are the mom and pop mills, the small mills that don't own their own timberland, and the mills that employ 5, 10, or 20 people in little cities, little towns up and down the west coast of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California.
And there will be less timber harvested. There will be a smaller timber industry. And even the environmentalists will say they do not want to destroy the timber industry, but want a sort of a kinder, gentler timber industry. We feel that in the future, the religious community has to be one of those institutions in society that helps deal with those transitions that are inevitably going to come. I think also that this is not the last situation in the United States where we're going to have an industry which is in conflict with environmental concerns.
What I want to say to people outside of the timber communities is wherever you come down on the spectrum in terms of the political issue, please do not devalue our people's pain. Hear us. Recognize what this means in real human terms. If, as it has been said, this is the first of a series of major changes in communities and lifestyles that will happen as we hit the environmental issues, how can we make these changes in a way that empowers people rather than victimizes them?
Lutheran Social Services of Washington is working with the timber communities to organize volunteers to reach out to the hundreds of families and individuals affected by this conflict. In addition, ELCA Synod Bishop David Wold established a special task force with other Protestant denominations and the Roman Catholic Church joining in. The ELCA Division for Outreach is also working to reach out to people in the Pacific Northwest during their time of need.
When God created the heavens and the earth, a vast nothingness was suddenly transformed. Many of us have been taught the creation story from childhood, but as we grow in spiritual understanding, we realize that God continues to create even today, working through the hearts and lives of ordinary people. In our final feature, we travel to Mexico City to witness one such example of profound transformation, a transformation that involves human dignity and self-esteem, not just material development.
They are everywhere here. The big dark eyes look up at the visitor, sometimes shy, sometimes mischievous. These are the children of the Valley of Chalco. A suburb, if you will, a suburb of 3 million people, a suburb the size of Chicago. The Valley of Chalco is part of the sprawling mass known as Mexico City, one of the world's largest metropolitan areas. Over 1/2 the population is under the age of 20. 2,000 people a day migrate here from the Mexican countryside, looking for a better life. This is a poor place if one measures wealth in terms of money. The average wage here is just $3.50 a day. But the Valley of Chalco is rich indeed if one measures wealth in other ways, if there could be a measure for love of children.
These little kids would come up and want to shake hands when they saw you or first met you, and when they left they would like a hug and a kiss, and I guess that's the concern that they learned from day one, and I think we have a lot to learn about it from them.
In this neighborhood, known as Tlapisahuac, love takes visible form in the work of Amextra, a Christian organization dedicated to empowering Mexico's poor. Amextra's name stands for the Mexican Association for Rural and Urban Transformation. What Amextra does depends on what local people decide they need. Rosalio used to farm. Now he cares for the earth in a different way.
Let me tell you that this man, he's a recycle man too, you know, because he takes bottles, different bottles.
Cardboard,
paper, he pick it up, and he's going to take to different places.
Hay estanques donde lo compran, viene siendo como una bodega.
There are places where they buy it, like a shop where the owners make a living buying recycled things, and a truck also comes around and picks it up to take it to the factory.
One of the ideas of Amextra is to use the community center to really start training for a small business, and maybe one of the business could be the recycle.
This community center is Amextra's newest project in Tlapisahuac. But this building's roots go far deeper than Amextra. Its roots are so deep that several ELCA members came to attend the building's dedication. This center is rooted in the gospel.
Pero ahora en Cristo Jesús,
but now in Christ Jesus, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he is our peace. In his flesh, he has made both groups into one.
These members of Westwood Lutheran Church in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, are one with the Christians in Tlapisahuac. Their congregation helped fund the building project.
Pues yo siento que Dios obró aquí porque
I really feel God has done something here, because Westwood Church, without having been here, without seeing, without knowing the people, they donated the money. They had faith in the people, or the community, or in the directors of Amextra.
And faith in a salvation message so powerful that an entire community has a new self-image, as people who can affect change and better their own lives, as people who love themselves and others, because God first loved them.
So in your center, we'd like to have you place this so that when you see it, you'll remember the love of Jesus Christ that binds us together. It was made by people at Westwood.
There is time for laughter and kidding here. There is also serious work to be done. Over 500 children in this neighborhood need immediate dental care. Children from Westwood sent them all toothbrushes. The center will be ecumenical, offering Bible study and pastoral care for everyone. It will have daycare for working mothers. It will be an education center. Until now, workshops on health and nutrition have been taught in private homes.
And the classes that are held there and the illustrations that we saw in the homes of the use of soya and nutrition, especially as it is impacted on the lives of the children, is just outstanding.
It was also very impressive to see the women who were involved, the self-esteem that they had accomplished because of their ability to have leadership given to them.
Los tamales son de dulce, de guayaba, de piña.
The tamales are, there's some sweet ones, there's pineapple, some of guayaba, and there's also ones with peppers and the long chile. We usually make the sweet tamales for the children, but we were thinking about all of you guys here visiting us, and we weren't sure if you'd like the hot or the spicy food, and so we made some of these sweet tamales for you also.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Canta y no llores.
Amextra's work is much like that of any development agency, but the people of Amextra say they aren't about development. They are about transformation. A holistic transformation of individuals and communities involving human dignity and self-esteem, not simply material well-being.
Ha habido una buena experiencia, ¿no? De que, por ejemplo, tener buenas amistades con todo mundo, ¿no?
Thank God, because through Amextra, this has been a good experience, hasn't it? For example, to have good friendships with all of you. To be friends is to give people love, love like God gives us love, and love comes from God, and then we can give that love to others.
Best words I can describe is it's very humbling. That's I'm so thankful for the experience. I can't say anymore.
Estos señores, estos hermanos, creo que también ellos conocen a Jesucristo.
I believe these people, these brothers and sisters, must also know the same Jesus Christ. And because of that, they put their faith in God more than anything else, saying, if we give this money, we know that the people are going to receive the benefit. I'm grateful they had faith in us without knowing us. But the truth is, the basis of their faith is God, not us. And I thank God that their path crossed with Amextra.
I dedicate this place where Jesus Christ dwells in the lives of his people. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
For those of us who've been here and those at Westwood who can't be here, but who've supported it with their trust, their encouragement and prayers, it's been a great celebration of dedication and a renewal of our commitment to Amextra, to the gospel ministry that we all share.
Of course, Amextra's ministry with Mexico's poor is ongoing. This glimpse of this work was recorded by Lutheran World Mission volunteer Paul Whiting and his wife Dorothy. They plan to continue documenting the Amextra creation story during their stay in Mexico.
And we plan to continue telling stories of people in ministry in future editions of MOSAIC. As always, we're interested in your stories and invite you to drop us a letter in care of MOSAIC at the church-wide offices. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, I'm Wivetta Bullock.
And I'm John Bachman. This has been MOSAIC, and you're a part of it.
This has been a production of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.